Now, as we are officially in a new year, we are about to experience a whole new chapter in hip hop. And while some people like Drake have said that they pushed back their new albums into 2025 so they can have a fresh start and new beginning to their careers, in actuality, most of what we saw being built in 2024 in the rap world is only going to continue and get stronger. And at the top of this list is, of course, none other than Kendrick Lamar and what he has been doing. And now, despite Kendrick dropping his album GNX at the end of 2024 and that record performing so well that he could really take off for years if he wanted to, we have just gotten more confirmation that Kendrick was really just getting started with that record and that a lot more is going to be coming in 2025. And now, before we get any further into why this is and just how ambitious Kendrick's year is going to be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It helps me out a ton. And so now with Kendrick Lamar's 2025, as everything is stacking up right now, despite Kendrick Lamar solidifying himself as the undisputed MVP in hip-hop of 2024, and really he had one of the best years a rapper has ever had in the history of the entire genre. In 2025, it seems like he is only going to be outperforming himself even against the historic year he just had, and when it's all said and done, Kendrick may just end up having the most dominant period of a career that any rapper has ever had over their field, because we all already know that Kendrick is set to make history this year between the Super Bowl, the predictions about sweeping the Grammys, which is something that even all-time legends who are nominated against him like Eminem think he should do, and then after all of this, he will of course be the third rapper in history to go on an entire stadium tour. And now while we know all of these events are going to happen and based on what we already have seen, altogether, they will deliver an experience like nothing else right now can match. What we are also seeing is that right alongside these major milestones and moments that are going to give Kendrick Lamar more exposure than ever, is that Kendrick is also planning on releasing more music. And when it comes to what he is actually going to be putting out, while we once thought that there was just one more piece of music coming and that would complete this arc he is on in this entire moment in time, from the conversations going on in the industry, which is showing that everybody is moving back in fear of this guy, to what we are seeing quietly come out from Kendrick's camp and from his close collaborators, there is a lot going around about what Kendrick Lamar's 2025 is going to look like. And while we don't know when Kendrick Lamar is going to exactly come out and release music, because just as we saw with the actual release of GNX, he is always going to put out bodies of work when we are least expecting it, we can already see that based on the current conditions of the industry and where everything is going, Kendrick is going to be releasing one major body of work at the beginning of 2025 and presumably in the first 2 months. And narrowing this down even more, based on the fact that the first month of 2025 is going to feature 2 album releases from 2 of the other biggest artists in the world in both The Weeknd and Bad Bunny, who, while based on all of their recent sales numbers, Kendrick could easily outperform. With them both being signed to UMG alongside Kendrick, it does not seem likely that he is going to be going up against some of the label's other biggest artists on their entire roster. But now, moving past these releases and looking at what is going to be going on in the rest of the music industry, after January, where so much is going to be going on from some of the biggest names in the industry, February is setting itself up to be an entire month where the music industry is taking 2 steps back, and they are going to be in hiding while Kendrick Lamar has one of the most historic months we will ever witness. Because first off, with the Grammys, the biggest award show in music is set to have one of its most important years in a long time, as beyond even all of the other genres, Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, Eminem, Andre 3000, Ye, Future, and so many other rap giants are going to be potentially stepping into the same building at the same time. And of course, from the rap categories to the other ones, Kendrick Lamar is the favorite to win multiple of the biggest awards possible. And now beyond this, of course, right after the Grammys, the Super Bowl is going to be coming up. And now, while again, we don't know what Kendrick Lamar is going to be doing on music's biggest stage and what type of event and spectacle he is going to put together when he has more eyes on him than most artists ever have in their entire careers. What we have recently found out, and this is very telling about where we're going, is that when the physical versions of Kendrick Lamar's GNX in terms of the CDs, vinyls, and cassettes ship, they are now expected to ship out during the week of the Super Bowl, which means that their sales figures will be counted for that week when Kendrick has this performance. And based on how good GNX did streaming-wise already, the physical sales for this album really could move anywhere between 300,000 to 500,000 physical copies, which means that just with that and not including the streaming boost from the Super Bowl, they are going to be giving Kendrick Lamar one of the biggest sales weeks of all time for a rapper. And now after Kendrick Lamar's GNX album physicals were set to ship in March and now they were moved up, While it once seemed like Kendrick Lamar would be releasing an entire new album around the time of the Super Bowl, which people had heard snippets of, and this project was seemingly the record that was going to be more ambitious and would feature all of the top tier talent from across the music world as opposed to GNX, which just featured West Coast artists, seeing these dates shuffle and with GNX being so successful and it dominating the charts for so long that between records like Squabble Up, TV Off, Luther, and everything else, this album doesn't just have some of the most momentum that any record has had in the music industry in quite some time, but it's really only going to continue to have more and more longevity. Altogether, it really seems like Kendrick Lamar is not in a rush to drop this greater album and that it may not come out until later in 2025, and in order to give GNX one of the biggest sales weeks for a rap album ever, which already, between everything that comes with the Super Bowl and the physical shipping out, should give it a bigger sales week than its first. Adding to this perfect moment, it seems like Kendrick Lamar is going to be dropping a deluxe version of GNX, and from an abundance of West Coast rappers saying they recorded more songs for the project that were not heard, to this shipping date being intentionally moved to give Kendrick the strongest numbers he could possibly get at the biggest time in his career. When it comes to showing off how important you are to audiences that are not familiar with your work inside of hip-hop, everything is really indicating that GNX is going to be getting maybe even an entire other side added to it that will flesh out this record and make its runtime closer to an hour long. And I really wouldn't be surprised if these deluxe tracks are going to be on the physical copies as well, because just like we saw with Tyler the Creator when he shipped out his physical copies of his record Chromacopia, we saw him add versions of songs that had alternate takes on records we already heard and even included different features on them altogether. And again, when we go back to the actual contents of the GNX album, which from the actual content of the record itself to the trailer where we see something like two cars, duality was such a key theme. To then looking even further on the actual lyrics of the album on a track like Squabble Up, where Kendrick says he is gonna double back like a deluxe. And specifically in this bar, he says hit his turf and get crackin' double back like a deluxe. And when you dissect this line between using the word turf and cracking, which are both football terms, and then even when we look at a track like TV Off, where Kendrick talks about walking into where the Super Bowl is being held, but with the etiquette of where he is from in LA, which while of course is talking about his own performance at the big game on one hand, could also be foreshadowing that Kendrick is going to be releasing a deluxe at this time that is going to be leaning more into his West Coast roots than we have ever seen. And so really, no matter how you want to think about this, with Kendrick Lamar's GNX physical copies intentionally shipping out right at the time when he is going to be performing at the biggest stage in music, and this will therefore give him the most momentum and attention that an artist can possibly have, and as a result, when you just look at the context clues and see the moment we are in, everything just makes so much sense that Kendrick is going to try and grow his fan base and make his platform even bigger than ever by having people enter his musical universe with a natural expansion and continuation of the project that is already dominating the charts, and in the case of a record like Luther, for example, is giving him the most radio play he has been getting from a wider audience outside of hip-hop in years. And now with this deluxe, I think it will feature Kendrick Lamar having an even greater victory lap than we have ever seen, and while the West Coast theme will definitely be continued, I would expect this side of the project to include some bigger features like his fellow TDE rappers and MCs of that magnitude. And now from here, when we look at everything Kendrick is trying to accomplish, I don't think the deluxe album is going to be the last we see from him, because based on the way he has won over the music industry and just seeing how dominant this entire moment in time has been from him, and how he now has control of the entire hip-hop genre from not just the culture perspective, but from the industry as well. That other album that people have been talking about that sounds nothing like GNX, I am sure is still a real thing, and I'd imagine it's going to be dropping in the summertime right when the tour is happening. And also based on the way Kendrick Lamar and SZA have been reaching the top of the charts every time they drop. And now how SZA has teased the collab album with Kendrick Lamar in a social media post, and this is coming off a time recently where SZA already teased the fact that Kendrick Lamar was working on an entire new album in the first place that was on the way, and that ultimately turned out to be GNX. It seems like a pattern from her and could quietly be her way of letting us know that there is more music coming without actually saying too much. And based on everything we know and how close they will be as they're going to be traveling through the biggest stadiums in the country together, they will have the opportunity to make records with momentum like we have never seen. And so now with all of this, from GNX Deluxe to the actual album we have heard is coming to some sort of a potential collab record with SZA, Kendrick Lamar has at least one, but possibly 3 albums that can be dropping in 2025, and I'm sure that no matter what Kendrick's plan is and where he is going to go with all of this momentum, if his music keeps getting better like we saw over the course of last year, then we are truly going to witness a prime from a rapper like we have never seen before. And so now with all of this said, let me know. What do you think about Kendrick Lamar and his plans to release more music in 2025? And what projects do you want to see and what records do you think are actually going to be coming? Now I can't wait to hear what you have to say, and if you made it to this point in the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It helps me out a ton. And now if you want to see how just as Kendrick Lamar is garnering even more hype than ever as a musician because the quality of what he is releasing is so high, Drake has been getting even more embarrassing than he already has, that he is now by far the biggest joke in hip-hop history. Check out the suggested video.